Welcome, friends, to a tale of ordinary moments that spark extraordinary changes when fate steps in. Enjoy the story. Sarah Hayes was having one of those mornings where the universe seemed determined to make her late. Her fingers trembled as she dumped the contents of her purse onto the coffee table for the second time, lipstick tubes and receipts scattering across the surface. Come on, she muttered, running her hands through her chestnut hair. They have to be somewhere. The wall clock ticked mercilessly as she patted down her jacket pockets again, finding nothing but lint and an old mint wrapper. Sarah dropped onto her ottoman, the leather creaking beneath her weight. Victor would have her head if she was late again. 3 strikes and you're out. That was his unwritten policy. She closed her eyes, forcing herself to think. This morning had been such a blur. Mark hadn't even stirred when she'd gotten up. Typical. She'd gone to the grocery store before dawn because the refrigerator was practically empty. 2 heavy bags. Her eyes flew open. The groceries! Sarah sprinted to the kitchen, her slippers sliding on the laminate flooring. She yanked open the freezer door, a blast of cold air hitting her face. There, nestled between a bag of frozen meatballs and a frost-covered box of waffles, glinted her keychain with its tacky "What Happens in Vegas" bottle opener that Mark had brought back from a business trip. Thank God, she breathed, snatching them up. The metal was ice-cold against her palm. Her phone buzzed, a text from Monica. Boss man prowling, where are you? Sarah glanced at the clock, 8:54. The cafe opened at 9 o'clock, and it was a 10-minute drive on a good day. Just great, she hissed, grabbing her purse and jacket. She didn't even bother to close the freezer properly, just gave it a shove as she raced toward the door. The elevator was out of service, again, so she took the stairs 2 at a time, bursting into the parking lot and diving into her aging Honda. The engine protested before finally turning over. Don't you dare fail me now, she warned the dashboard as she pulled out onto Maple Avenue, ignoring a horn blaring behind her. Sarah's knuckles were white on the steering wheel as she weaved through traffic. She couldn't afford to lose this job. Mark's company had slashed his hours, and their son's college tuition wasn't going to pay itself. The irony wasn't lost on her. She had found her keys only to potentially lose everything else. As she screeched into the Sunrise Cafe's back lot at precisely 8:59, Sarah allowed herself one deep breath before plastering on a smile. Another day, another dollar. If only she knew how this ordinary morning was about to become the first domino in a chain that would completely transform her life. Sarah's breathless entry through the back door of Sunrise Cafe coincided perfectly with the digital clock on the microwave flipping to 9 o'clock. She shrugged off her jacket and reached for her apron with trembling fingers, still cold from the freezer-chilled keys. Monica materialized at her side, blonde ponytail swinging as she glanced nervously toward the front of the cafe. Cutting it close today, aren't we? She whispered, helping Sarah tie her apron strings. Victor's been prowling around like a shark that smells blood. Already asked for you twice. Keys in the freezer, Sarah explained, washing her hands vigorously at the sink. Don't ask. Girl, one of these days you're going to give me a heart attack. Monica handed her a hairnet. He's in one of his moods. Sent back a delivery of tomatoes because they weren't vibrant enough. But we need those for everything. I know. He said he found a cheaper supplier. Monica rolled her eyes. Probably someone selling leftover ketchup packets. Through the service window, Sarah could see the morning regulars already forming a line. The tiny cafe in Lakewood had developed a loyal following despite Victor's cost-cutting measures. Their secret weapon, Sarah's baked goods, made from her grandmother's recipes that she refused to compromise on. Hayes! Victor's voice boomed from the front. Office. Now! Monica squeezed Sarah's arm. Good luck. I put fresh coffee in his mug. Black and bitter, just like his soul. Sarah squared her shoulders and walked toward the small room Victor grandly called his office. Really, just a glorified closet with a desk. He stood in the doorway, arms crossed over his polo shirt, embroidered with Sunrise Cafe and Victor Barton owner in gaudy gold thread. 1 minute before opening, he sneered, checking his Rolex, a knockoff, Sarah was certain. Again. I was on time, Victor, Sarah said, keeping her voice steady despite the day's rocky start. The cafe opens at 9. It's 9. Preparation time, Hayes. Professionals arrive early to prepare. Sarah bit her tongue, mentally calculating how much was left in their savings account after last month's college tuition payment. Not enough to risk losing this job, no matter how insufferable Victor had become since purchasing the cafe from its original owners last year. "You're right," she forced out. "It won't happen again." Victor seemed disappointed by her acquiescence. "See that it doesn't. Now, we're featuring your apple cinnamon pastries today. The weekend crowd expects them." Translation: make twice as many for the same pay. "Of course," Sarah replied, already planning how to stretch the ingredients. As Victor strutted toward the front, Monica appeared with a mixing bowl. "How bad?" "Just the usual," Sarah sighed, taking the bowl. "I need this job more than I need my dignity, apparently." "Don't we all?" Monica muttered. "At least the tips are decent. Hey, did I tell you what happened with that guy who comes in every Tuesday?" As they worked side by side, Sarah's fingers kneaded dough with practiced precision, while her mind wandered to Mark and their mounting bills. Something had to change. She just didn't realize how soon that change would come. By midday, the sweet aroma of Sarah's pastries filled the cafe. Her hands moved with practiced efficiency, folding delicate dough as sunlight streamed through the kitchen's single window. The morning rush had subsided, leaving a peaceful rhythm to her work. The kitchen door swung open with unnecessary force. Victor stood there, clipboard in hand, eyes narrowing as they always did when he entered her domain. "Hayes, we need to talk about your time card from last week." Sarah continued working, not looking up. "What about it?" "You clocked out 15 minutes late 3 days in a row." "The evening rush ran long," she explained. "Couldn't leave Monica alone with all those orders." Victor tapped his clipboard. "That's not authorized overtime." "So don't pay me for it," Sarah replied, still focused on her dough. "I wasn't asking to be paid." "It's about procedure." Sarah finally looked up, flour dusting her cheeks. "Speaking of procedure, if you want everyone here 15 minutes early to prepare, shouldn't that be paid time too?" Victor's face flushed, starting at his neck and crawling upward. "That's professional commitment." "Funny how commitment only works one way," Sarah murmured. "What was that?" Victor's voice rose sharply. Sarah hesitated, thinking of her morning resolution to keep quiet. Her son's tuition bill had arrived yesterday, another $4,800 needed by month's end. And with Mark's hours cut? "Nothing," she said finally. "I'll watch my clock out times." Victor stepped closer. "I'm beginning to think you don't appreciate your position here, Hayes. There are plenty who would love this job." "I appreciate my job just fine," Sarah replied, meeting his gaze. "Good. Because one more incident, any incident, and we'll be parting ways. Understood?" After he stormed out, Sarah gripped the counter, breathing deeply. "What a jerk," Monica whispered, emerging from the pantry. "You okay?" Sarah nodded silently, returning to her dough with more force than necessary. "Don't let him get to you," Monica urged. "I need this job, Monica, I really do." "Mark's still on reduced hours?" "Yep, and he's not exactly killing himself looking for something better." Sarah sighed. "I'll just keep my head down." Monica squeezed her shoulder before returning to the front. Sarah slid the final batch into the oven, setting the timer for 40 minutes. How many more days until her life felt like her own again? Sarah wiped her hands and glanced toward the back door. Maybe some fresh air would clear her head. Just 5 minutes. Surely she deserved that much. The back door of Sunrise Cafe creaked open as Sarah stepped into the alley. The contrast between the kitchen's heat and the cool outdoor air made her shiver slightly. She leaned against the brick wall, closing her eyes and taking her first deep breath of the day. 40 minutes until the pies needed to come out. 40 minutes until she could go home and face whatever bills had arrived in today's mail. Sarah massaged her temples, feeling a headache forming. "Excuse me, ma'am?" Sarah's eyes snapped open. A man stood a few feet away, unshaven, clothes rumpled, but with alert, intelligent eyes that didn't match his disheveled appearance. "I'm sorry to bother you," he said, maintaining a respectful distance. "I was wondering if—" "We don't have any positions available," Sarah interrupted automatically. Job seekers often tried the back door approach. The man shook his head. No, that's not it. I'm not from around here. My wallet was stolen yesterday, and I haven't eaten in... He paused, seemingly embarrassed. Well, it's been a while. Sarah studied him more carefully. His clothes were worn but clean, and despite his unkempt appearance, there was something dignified about the way he held himself. A fading bruise marked his left cheekbone. What happened to your face? She asked. Tried reporting the theft to the police. He gave a humorless laugh. Let's just say they weren't sympathetic to an out-of-towner with no ID. Sarah glanced nervously at the cafe door. Victor had a strict policy against encouraging vagrants, as he put it. Anyone caught giving away food would be fired on the spot. He'd made an example of Janie, a college student who'd worked weekends just last month. What's your name? Sarah asked. Dean Collins. He extended his hand, then seemed to think better of it and withdrew it. I don't want to cause trouble. I'm heading to the bus station to see if I can convince someone to help me get home to Pineville. Something in his story rang true to Sarah. Or maybe it was just that after a morning of Victor's accusations, she was primed to believe someone who seemed genuine. Wait here, she said suddenly. Just don't let anyone see you. Sarah slipped back inside, heart pounding. The kitchen was still empty. Quickly, she wrapped 3 warm pastries from the cooling rack in wax paper and shoved them in her pocket. Then, on impulse, she dug into her purse and pulled out a $20 bill, part of what she'd set aside for groceries this week. When she returned to the alley, Dean was still waiting, looking uncertain. Here, she said, thrusting the pastries and money toward him. It's not much, but it'll help get you home. Dean's eyes widened. I can't accept money. The food is more than enough. Take it, Sarah insisted. Buy a ticket or whatever you need. I don't know how to thank you. His voice cracked slightly. You're the first person who's shown me any kindness since I got here. It's nothing, Sarah said, though they both knew it wasn't. The back door suddenly flew open, framing Victor's stocky silhouette. Hayes? His voice was dangerously quiet. My office. Now. As Dean backed away with a look of regret, Sarah felt an odd sense of calm. Something told her that whatever happened next would change everything, and maybe that wasn't such a bad thing after all. The walk to Victor's office felt like a death march. Sarah's footsteps echoed on the tile floor as cafe patrons glanced up curiously. Monica caught her eye from behind the counter, mouthing, "What happened?" Sarah could only shake her head slightly as she passed. Victor was already seated behind his desk when she entered, his fingers forming a steeple under his chin. The office smelled of cheap aftershave and burnt coffee. Close the door, he commanded. Sarah did as instructed, then stood with her back straight, hands clasped in front of her apron. No point delaying the inevitable. Do you know why I've called you in here? Victor's voice was eerily calm. I can explain about theft, he cut her off. Company property given away without authorization? They were just a few pastries, Sarah said. They would have been discounted at the end of the day anyway. Victor's eyes narrowed. So you admit it? Yes, I gave food to someone who needed it. He hasn't eaten in days. Very charitable, Victor sneered. With my inventory. Sarah felt something snap inside her. All the morning's frustrations, the lost keys, the threats, the constant belittling, crystallized into a sudden, liberating anger. Your inventory? Those pastries were made with my recipes, my skill. You wouldn't know quality food if it bit you on your cheap necktie. Victor's face flushed deep crimson. You're fired, Hayes. Effective immediately. No severance, no references. Sarah had expected to feel panic at these words. Instead, she felt strangely weightless. Fine. That's it? Fine? Victor seemed disappointed by her calm response. Yes, fine. Sarah untied her apron and laid it on his desk. But you should know there's a final batch of pies in the oven. Timer's set for 40 minutes. And you'd better take them out when it goes off, she said with a small smile. Unless you want them to burn to a crisp. You think I can't handle pulling out a tray of pies? Victor scoffed. I own this place. Oh, I know exactly what you own, Sarah replied, heading for the door. She turned back one last time. By the way, they need to be rotated halfway through baking, but I'm sure a culinary genius like you already knew that. She walked out before he could respond, stopping only to grab her purse and jacket from her locker. Monica rushed over, concern written across her face. Sarah, what happened? I just got fired, Sarah whispered, for giving food to that man outside. He actually fired you for that? What a monster! Monica hugged her tightly. What are you going to do? Sarah exhaled slowly. Right now, I'm going home. Mark will be there soon. We'll figure something out together. Call me later, okay? Monica squeezed her arm. Promise? Promise. As Sarah pushed through the front door into the afternoon sunlight, she heard Victor barking orders in the kitchen. She felt a twinge of guilt about the pies, but it quickly passed. In 40 minutes, Victor would learn a valuable lesson about respecting culinary expertise. Sarah's car seemed to drive itself home, muscle memory guiding her through Burlington's familiar streets while her mind raced. The digital clock on her dashboard read 2:17 p.m., hours before Mark usually returned from work. Perfect timing to collect her thoughts and come up with a plan. It'll be okay, she whispered to herself, gripping the steering wheel. We've dealt with worse. Had they, though? With their son's tuition payments looming and Mark's reduced hours, losing her job felt catastrophic. Still, home was her sanctuary, the one place where she could let down her guard and be vulnerable. Mark will know what to do, she assured herself as she parked. They'd been together for 23 years. He'd stand by her. He always had. Sarah climbed the stairs to their second-floor apartment, mentally composing how she'd tell him about her day. As she slid her key into the lock, she pictured him listening attentively, then pulling her into a reassuring hug. The door swung open, and Sarah immediately stumbled over something in the entryway. A woman's black leather boot with a stiletto heel. The kind of impractical footwear Sarah never wore. What the? She muttered, picking it up. Her heart began hammering against her ribs as she noticed a silk scarf draped over the coat rack, also not hers. Mark? She called out, her voice small and uncertain. No answer, but she heard movement from their bedroom. Sarah moved through the apartment as if in a dream, still clutching the unfamiliar boot. The bedroom door was partially open. She pushed it wider with trembling fingers. Mark? She whispered. Her husband of over 2 decades was tangled in their sheets with a woman Sarah had never seen before, young, blonde, her makeup smeared but still striking. The woman saw Sarah first and let out a startled shriek. Mark whipped around, his face transforming from pleasure to shock in an instant. Susie, what are you doing home? Sarah stared at him, momentarily unable to process that he'd called her by the wrong name. Then reality crashed down on her. I got fired, she said flatly, the absurdity of explaining this now hitting her. Fired? But… Mark fumbled for words, pulling the sheet around his waist as he stood. I can explain this. It's not what it looks like? Sarah finished for him, surprising herself with her calm tone. Because it looks like you're sleeping with someone else in our bed. The woman was hastily gathering her clothes, avoiding eye contact. How long? Sarah asked. Mark's silence was answer enough. Sarah backed away, suddenly needing air. Without another word, she turned and walked out of the apartment, dropping the boot as she went. She heard Mark calling after her, but his voice seemed to come from very far away. Outside, Sarah leaned against her car, a strange, hysterical laugh bubbling up from her chest. In the span of 6 hours, she'd lost her keys, her job, and her marriage. What else could possibly go wrong? Her phone rang, Mark no doubt, with excuses at the ready. She silenced it and began walking aimlessly, her mind strangely empty. The Burlington streets blurred around her as she wandered without destination or purpose. Hours passed. Her phone rang repeatedly. Mark, then Monica, then Mark again. Sarah kept walking, as afternoon faded into evening, her shadow stretching longer on the sidewalk, just as the distance between her old life and whatever came next grew with each step. Twilight descended on Burlington as streetlights flickered to life. Sarah found herself in a small park, sitting on a bench with no memory of how she'd gotten there. Her phone buzzed again, Monica's smiling face lighting up the screen. This time, Sarah answered. Hello? Her voice sounded foreign to her own ears. Sarah, thank God. I've been trying to reach you for hours. Are you okay?" The simple question broke something inside Sarah. Tears she'd been holding back all day suddenly spilled over. "No," she whispered. "I'm not okay at all." "Where are you? I'll come get you." Sarah looked around, disoriented. "I'm not sure. There's a playground and a gazebo. Oakledge Park. Stay put. I'm on my way." 20 minutes later, Monica's faded blue Subaru pulled up. She rushed to Sarah, wrapping her in a fierce hug. "What happened? Is it about the job? Because Victor is the worst and—" "Mark's cheating on me," Sarah interrupted, the words still unreal as they left her mouth. Monica's expression shifted from concern to fury. "That bastard! Come on, you're staying with me tonight." The drive to Monica's apartment passed in silence. Inside, Monica poured 2 generous glasses of red wine and sat beside Sarah on the worn sofa. "Tell me everything," she said softly. Sarah recounted her day chronologically, the frozen keys, Victor's threats, the homeless man, her firing, and finally coming home to find Mark with another woman. "And the worst part?" Sarah laughed bitterly. "He called me Susie. Who the hell is Susie?" Monica sipped her wine. "I always thought Mark was one of the good ones." "So did I." Sarah stared into her glass. 23 years, Mon. We have a son in college." "What are you going to do?" "I don't know," Sarah admitted. "I can't go back there. Stay here as long as you need." Monica squeezed her hand. "Guest room's all yours. I lost everything today." The reality was still sinking in. My job, my marriage. "Not everything," Monica corrected. "You've still got your dignity, and me." Sarah gave her first genuine smile of the day. "When did you get so wise?" 2 years ago, when Travis left me for his dental hygienist." Monica topped off their glasses. "Trust me, it gets better." Over the next few days, Sarah moved through her grief methodically. She retrieved her clothes and essential documents while Mark was at work, filed divorce papers at the county courthouse, and began applying for jobs online. Monica's small apartment became a refuge, a place where Sarah could cry freely, then pick herself up and start planning. Each night they'd share a bottle of wine and stories from their day. Each morning, Sarah woke feeling slightly stronger. "You know what's strange?" Sarah said one evening as they shared leftover lasagna. "I don't miss him. I miss who I thought he was." Monica nodded. "That's usually how it goes." "I keep wondering if there were signs I missed." "Don't do that to yourself," Monica warned. "Forward, not backward, remember?" Sarah's phone chimed with a text. Mark again, begging to talk. She deleted it without responding. "You're right," Sarah said, straightening her shoulders. "What's done is done." "Someone's at the door," Monica called from the kitchen. "Can you get it?" Sarah closed her laptop with a sigh. Another evening of rejection emails, leaving her dispirited. "If it's Mark, I'm not here," she said, only half joking. When she opened the door, she found herself face to face with a well-dressed man holding daisies. It took her a moment to recognize him. "You?" she gasped. The man from the alley, Dean, stood before her, clean-shaven and transformed. His rumpled clothes had been replaced by pressed khakis and a button-down shirt. "I'm sorry to intrude," he said, shifting nervously. "Your friend Monica told me where to find you." Sarah turned to Monica, who appeared behind her, looking sheepish. "He came by the cafe looking for you," Monica explained. "I thought you might want to hear what he has to say." "Please," Dean added. "Just 5 minutes of your time." Sarah hesitated, then stepped back. 5 minutes. "First, I want to thank you properly," Dean began, setting the flowers on the coffee table. "What you did for me that day, it meant more than you know." "It was just a few pastries," Sarah said. "It wasn't just food, it was dignity." Dean leaned forward. "After you helped me, I was able to get home to Pineville. That's why I'm here now." "You came all the way back to say thank you?" "Partly. I also came with a proposition." He explained that he was a professional chef who had recently divorced. He'd left his ex-wife their apartment and moved to his mother's small town, where he'd purchased a building along the interstate. "I'm opening a roadside cafe," he said. "Nothing fancy, just good food for travelers. But I need help. I need someone who knows baking inside and out." Sarah stared at him. "You're offering me a job?" "A partnership, actually. Your recipes, my entrees. We'd split everything 50-50. Monica squealed from the corner. Sarah, it's perfect. I don't understand, Sarah said slowly. Why me? We're practically strangers. Dean smiled. Because in 30 seconds of tasting your pastry, I knew you were talented. And in the moment you helped me, risking your job for a stranger, I knew you were kind. Talent and kindness are rare enough separately. Together, they're worth investing in. Sarah felt a flutter of something she hadn't experienced in years. Possibility. I'd need to think about it, she said cautiously. Of course, the offer stands whenever you're ready. After he left, Monica danced around the apartment. This is fate, Sarah. A fresh start. Sarah picked up the daisies, imagining what it might be like to start over in a place where no one knew her, where she could simply be Sarah, baker, and businesswoman. The Burlington County Courthouse bustled with activity. Sarah smoothed down her new dress and checked her watch. Mark would arrive any minute for their divorce hearing. Nervous? Dean asked, his presence beside her a surprising comfort. No, Sarah realized she meant it. Just ready for this chapter to end. 2 weeks had passed since Dean's unexpected appearance. 2 weeks of consideration, calls to her supportive son, and long talks with Monica about second chances. Yesterday, Sarah had accepted Dean's business proposal. Today, she would end her marriage. There he is, Sarah whispered as Mark entered. His expression darkened when he noticed Dean. Mark approached, shoulders squared. I see you wasted no time, he said coldly. Mark, don't, Sarah warned. You've been grieving our marriage for what, 10 minutes? He stepped closer, but Dean positioned himself between them. This isn't the place, Dean said quietly. Mark seemed to deflate. I'm sorry, Sarah. I miss you. Sarah felt a twinge, not regret, but acknowledgement of what they'd once shared. I miss who we were, but that's gone now. The divorce proceedings were mercifully brief. Sarah emerged feeling lighter, as if she'd set down a heavy burden. That evening, Monica threw a divorce party, complete with a cake frosted with, "Congratulations on your freedom." To new beginnings, Monica toasted. Speaking of which, Sarah handed Monica an envelope. A wedding invitation? Are you serious? Sarah laughed. It's a business partnership celebration. Dean's idea to introduce the community to the new cafe. And the fact that it looks exactly like a wedding invitation? Marketing, Sarah winked. People love a good story. Monica studied her friend. You're different lately, happier. I feel like myself again. Sarah paused. You know, there's room for one more at the cafe. Dean needs someone with front-of-house experience. Me? Leave Burlington? Monica pretended shock, but Sarah caught the flicker of interest in her eyes. Just think about it, Sarah said. Sometimes the best thing we can do is start fresh. The next morning, Sarah and Dean boarded the bus to Pineville. As they pulled away, Sarah spotted Monica watching thoughtfully from the sidewalk. She'll come, Dean predicted. How do you know? Because I recognize that look. It's the same one you had when I offered you the partnership. It's the look of someone realizing there might be more to life than what they've settled for. Sarah watched Burlington recede through the window. 6 days ago, she'd lost her keys in the freezer, setting off a chain of events that had transformed her life. If I hadn't misplaced my keys that morning, none of this would have happened. Dean took her hand. Sometimes we have to get a little lost before we can find where we're supposed to be. Sarah smiled, knowing she was exactly where she needed to be, moving forward 1 mile at a time.